Long before our modern world, in the year 1181, a quiet revolution was unfolding in the fields and farmlands across the globe. This was not a revolution of armies or kings, but one of careful observation and profound understanding. It was a time when farmers, without the tools of modern science, began to transform the very nature of how they fed their communities. They were scientists in their own right, using their eyes and hands to unlock the secrets held within the soil and the seeds. They learned that by simply choosing the best plants from each harvest, the strongest, the plumpest, the most resilient, they could slowly, generation by generation, create crops that were far more productive than those their ancestors had known. This was the dawn of a new age in agriculture, driven by human ingenuity. This was a global phenomenon, a shared human journey happening in different ways in different places. In the fertile river valleys of China, along the ancient trade routes of the Middle East, and in the patchwork fields of medieval Europe, people were engaged in the same fundamental pursuit, securing a better, more reliable source of food. They did not have laboratories or genetic sequencing, but they had something just as powerful: generations of accumulated wisdom. They watched the seasons, they understood the soil, and they saw the subtle differences between one stalk of wheat and the next. This intimate connection to the land allowed them to make choices that would have far-reaching consequences, paving the way for larger populations and the growth of great cities. In the Middle East, a cradle of agriculture, farmers had been perfecting crops like wheat and barley for thousands of years. By the 12th century, this process was highly refined. They selected seeds for traits like drought resistance, which was crucial in the arid climate, and for higher yields. In Europe, the same principles were applied to rye, oats, and legumes. Peasants would carefully set aside the best portion of their harvest, not for their tables, but for the next planting season. It was an act of faith and foresight, a belief that careful selection today would lead to greater abundance tomorrow. This simple, yet profound act of selective breeding was a cornerstone of civilization, a slow and steady process of improvement that underpinned daily life. This era represents a remarkable chapter in the human story. It shows us that innovation is not solely the domain of the modern age. The farmers of 1181 were pioneers, using the resources they had, patience, observation, and a deep respect for the natural world, to solve one of humanity's oldest challenges. They were building a more secure future, one seed at a time. Their work was a testament to the power of paying attention, of learning from the world around them, and of passing that knowledge down through the generations. It was a revolution that happened not with a bang, but with the quiet rustle of ripening grain in the wind, a sound of hope and sustenance. Perhaps nowhere was this agricultural transformation more dramatic than in Song Dynasty China, with the arrival of a remarkable grain known as champa rice. This variety, introduced from the Champa Kingdom in what is now Vietnam, was a game-changer. It was exceptionally fast-growing, allowing farmers to harvest not just one, but two crops in a single year. It was also remarkably drought-resistant, able to thrive in conditions where other rice varieties would fail. The Song government, recognizing its immense potential, actively promoted its cultivation across the fertile Yangtze River Valley. This single plant helped to fuel an economic and demographic boom, making it possible to feed the massive, burgeoning populations of cities like Hangzhou, which was then the largest city in the world. This practice of double cropping, powered by champa rice, revolutionized the landscape. Fields that once lay fallow for part of the year were now in a near constant state of production. This intensification of agriculture required new levels of organization and labor, but the rewards were immense. A similar spirit of systemic innovation was taking hold in Europe with the spread of the three-field system. Instead of dividing their land into two fields, one planted, one fallow, farmers began using three. One field would be planted in the autumn with wheat or rye, a second in the spring with oats or peas, and the third would be left to rest. This simple change had profound effects on European life. The three-field system was a brilliant solution to several problems at once. It increased the amount of land under cultivation by a third, leading to a significant surplus of food. It also improved human nutrition, as the spring planting of legumes like peas and beans returned vital nitrogen to the soil and added essential protein to the medieval diet. This agricultural surplus did more than just feed families. It became the engine of a growing market economy. For the first time, many farmers began to produce crops, not just for their own survival, but to sell in the bustling markets of nearby towns and cities. This shift from subsistence to commercial farming marked a pivotal moment in economic history. These large-scale systems, from the double cropping of Asia to the three-field rotation of Europe, show a sophisticated understanding of ecology and resource management. They were complex strategies that required communal cooperation and long-term planning. Farmers were not just planting seeds, they were managing entire ecosystems to maximize their productivity and sustainability. They understood the importance of crop rotation, soil health, and water management. These were not just collections of individual farms, but integrated agricultural systems that allowed civilizations to flourish, proving that sustainable intensification was possible long before the advent of modern machinery. While great agricultural systems were transforming societies in Asia and Europe, a different, yet equally sophisticated story of human ingenuity was unfolding across the vast landscapes of what is now Canada. Here, indigenous peoples like the Mi'kmaq, Inuit, Cree, and Ojibwe had developed unique and deeply sustainable ways of life, perfectly attuned to the diverse and often challenging environments they called home. Their innovations were not centered on plows and permanent fields, but on an intimate knowledge of the land, its seasons, and its creatures. Their science was one of observation, tradition, and a profound spiritual connection to the natural world. They thrived not by changing the land, but by living in harmony with it. The Mi'kmaq of the eastern woodlands, for example, lived according to a seasonal cycle that maximized the resources of the coast in the summer and the forest in the winter. They were expert hunters and fishers, using specialized tools like the leister, a three-pronged spear, to catch salmon and eels. Their birch bark canoes were marvels of engineering, lightweight and durable, allowing them to navigate the region's extensive network of rivers and lakes. Their lives were guided by a deep respect for the world around them, a belief that all living things possessed a spirit and deserved gratitude. This philosophy ensured that they never took more than they needed, preserving the abundance of the land for future generations. Far to the north, in the stark and beautiful Arctic, the ancestors of the modern Inuit had mastered survival in one of the world's most extreme climates. Their ingenuity is evident in their remarkable inventions. Media group, close-up of Inuit tools, traditional Inuit artifacts on display, Inuit elder demonstrating inventional, stock, distribute, equally. The kayak, a sleek and silent hunting vessel, allowed them to pursue sea mammals in the icy waters. The igloo, a dome built from blocks of snow, was an incredibly efficient shelter that used the insulating properties of snow to protect them from the brutal cold. Their clothing, made from layers of caribou fur and sealskin, was a sophisticated system for managing heat and moisture. Every tool, every technique, was a testament to a deep, hard-won understanding of ice, snow, and the rhythms of Arctic life. The Cree and Ojibwe of the Boreal Forest and Great Lakes region were masters of their woodland environment. They used snowshoes for winter travel, toboggans to transport goods, and developed complex understandings of medicinal plants. Their pictographs, painted on rocks and cliffs, were a powerful form of communication, recording stories, spiritual visions, and maps of the land. These symbols were not just art, they were a library of knowledge, a way of passing vital information across generations. For all these peoples, survival and prosperity depended on community, on sharing knowledge and resources, and on a philosophy of stewardship that saw them as caretakers, not conquerors, of the land. When we look back to the world of 1181, we see a powerful convergence of ideas, separated by oceans but united by a common human spirit. In the fields of China and Europe, the careful selection of a single seed could, over time, transform a society. In the forests and frozen lands of North America, a deep respect for nature was not just a spiritual belief, but a practical guide to a sustainable existence. Both represent a form of science, one based on methodical experimentation with crops, the other on a holistic understanding of entire ecosystems. The farmers breeding champa rice and the Mi'kmaq hunter showing gratitude for a kill were both participating in a timeless dialogue between humanity and the natural world. These ancient innovations hold profound lessons for us today, on this 17th day of February, 2026. The principle of stewardship, so central to indigenous cultures, reminds us that the Earth's resources are finite and that we have a responsibility to future generations. The idea of respecting nature is not a passive sentiment. It is an active, knowledge-based relationship. It is about understanding the intricate connections within an ecosystem and acting in a way that preserves its balance and health. This wisdom, which enabled people to thrive for millennia, is more relevant than ever as we face our own environmental challenges. It teaches us that true sustainability comes from working with nature, not against it. Similarly, the agricultural revolutions of the 12th century demonstrate the incredible power of teamwork, tradition, and incremental change. The success of the three-field system required entire villages to coordinate their planting and harvesting. The spread of champa rice was a massive undertaking, supported by government policy and the shared knowledge of countless farmers. These achievements were not the work of lone geniuses, but the result of collective effort and the passing down of knowledge. They show us that small, observant changes, when adopted by a community and sustained over time, can lead to monumental transformations. It is a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping a better future. Ultimately, the story of 1181 is a story of hope and ingenuity. It reveals that our ancestors, whether in a medieval monastery garden or a birch bark canoe, were constantly observing, learning, and adapting. They used the best tools they had, science, tradition, cooperation, and respect, to shape their world for the better. They understood that their survival was inextricably linked to the health of the planet and the strength of their communities. As we navigate the complexities of our own time, we can draw inspiration from their resourcefulness. Their legacy is written in the land itself, a timeless reminder that the future is built upon the wisdom of the past.